or something like that. But I'm talking about in the big issues of life. I've got no place. It was for me to determine, and for me to see who and what this thing called me is. And so it is for each of them. The statement was initially in the Bible, in the Bible that we use and venerate. The statement is, and God gave man dominion. That doesn't say that he gave a church dominion, or that he gave an educational institution dominion. It doesn't say that he gave science dominion. It doesn't say that he gave government dominion. It says he gave man dominion. And I tell all of you that you've got it, you are it. It's deep within yourself. It's there. It's there. And you know where it is? It's within your heart. And I got news for you. It's really there. And every once in a while somebody will come along in your experience and will tell you honestly that it's there so that you know it's there. And feel it, and your whole life gets changed in the twinkling of an eye. The answers are always within yourself. Now that doesn't mean that we don't still go and pull down the book off the shelf. We don't still go to the encyclopedia when we want information. But the confirmation comes from within. Once upon a time in your life you were taught the alphabet. Okay, so a teacher was in the front of the room and teaches you the alphabet. But where did the recognition take place? Within yourself. Where did you really learn it? And know it and feel it? Within yourself. When did you say to yourself, aha, I know it? Within yourself. There's an old saying in the East, I can point to the moon and can show you where it is, but you have to see it with your own eyes. Jesus made the remark, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Well, okay, so someone has now come along in your experience who does nothing but when he has an opportunity, and people are interested because they're the only ones who listen anyway, but just ask me questions. I only answer questions that I'm asked. I don't go around proselyting or trying to sell books or to build up a following or to do anything. I just be myself, live the truth that I've come to perceive. Then if it is right, then others see it and will ask me about it. You know, if everybody is afraid to walk through the woods because they think there are demons and evil spirits and that sort of thing through the woods, and everybody walks around the woods, and yet you, because you know that there is nothing but woods there, just woods being woods, and so you walk directly through it, where everybody else is frightened. You're not. Don't you think for a minute that others are going to say, hey, man, how did you make it through the woods when nobody else came? Don't you think that you're going to be seen and be asked? You bet you will. You bet you will. So you find out who and what you are, and then live it. Have the courage to live it. And I assure you that you'll find yourself being a light that people will ask you about it. Now this is all that is trying. And how can I say this with authority? How can I say it so that you don't think it's just somebody shooting off his mouth about some theory that he's come up with? The reason I can say it is because I've never asked anybody to come and visit with me. And yet people have visited with me from all over the world. From everywhere, from India, from Australia, from South Africa, from England. This lady has just traveled 3,000 miles because she is about the business of discerning what is the truth, what is it really. If it really resided in the religious institutions of the world and was just there, how comes the religious institutions of the world have got the earth and the big mess it seems? And if it really resided in education as education is, how comes it's got us where we've got a technological capacity but no heart to do anything with it? So reality has to be somewhere besides out there. Where do you suppose it is? It's within yourself. And you don't worry about it being inside of everybody else. It's within yourself. And you discover it there first. You quit worrying about what the other people do, whether they agree or disagree, like it or don't like it. You find it within yourself. And live it. And then you'll find people coming, like this lady's come, like many will come to her. And like each of you, as you discover and live the truth you really are, you will find people coming to you and asking you, how is it that you can walk through the woods that everybody else is so frightened of? How is it that you don't think the earth is flat, and therefore you can go in boats and sail off because you know the earth is round? Okay, now, I've told you what I do. I've told you what I've done. I haven't told you what I've found because you haven't asked. But to the best of my ability, I've told you what I write about in my books. And now, anybody, if you like, you can take a break, or you can ask me questions, or you can give it to me with both barrels. You can do it any way you want to. But I'll be happy to, the best of my ability, answer your question. Got a question back there in the back. Yes, ma'am.
Where did you find all the money to do all this stuff?
Well, lady, I must tell you that I didn't. I did the best I could. I worked along the way. Of course, being in the Army, much of my traveling and searching was done during the time that I was in the Army. But the truth that reveals itself ultimately discloses that all things whatsoever you have need of, the Father provides. And this happens to be one of the true statements that's in the Bible. You'll find yourself getting what you need. Do you not right now have all that's necessary? You have all that was necessary to ask the question. So, yes, have I answered your question? I tell you what, I got into India once, and I wanted to study with a teacher, and this teacher found out how much money I had in my wallet. And that's what was his fee. It took every penny I had. And yet I managed to go from there on into China. But you'll find yourself with the means. But, of course, that doesn't mean that you have to leave home to find the truth. The truth is ever right where one is. I assure you that the truth is right where one is, because one always says here, doesn't one? If you were asked, where are you, you would always say, I am here. So here is where the truth is. The truth is always here. One doesn't have to go outside looking for it. It's here, always, within oneself. I used to go around, I call myself looking for God. Where did I find God? Well, I found God was the very life I am, this very life. I had wondered all this time what it was and where it was. It was right where I was, being what I was. Would you like to take a break, or because I've talked about 45 minutes now, or would you like to ask some more questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know any better way to begin this group than encouragement towards truth and identity and reality. And I was delighted to hear you say that perhaps, even though it's within our hearts, we might find some clues as to what's in our hearts in literature. And that's exactly what we're doing. I wondered, while you were talking, if you identified with your own personal philosophy with any American philosopher.
No.
If you found something helpful in American.
Yes, indeed. I think I must say that I have come to find out that there's beauty in every religion and every philosophy. And I have found out that I include them all within the identity I am. And consequently, I look on all philosophy like I would look on a big flower garden. And every religious belief, whether it's Eastern, Western, Mid-Eastern, or wherever it comes from, even African voodooism or whatever it might be, is just another flower in my garden. And they're all beautiful. And I include them all within myself. And let me show you why you include them all within yourself. Now listen, because here comes something that can really turn you on. Really. Turn you on the rest of your life. In ways that will carry you to heights that nothing else can carry you. Whereabouts have you ever heard of any of the religions of the world, or any of the philosophies of the world, or any of the philosophers? Where? Just stop and think. Where have you ever heard of it? Within your own thinking. Somebody else's thinking? No, within your own thinking. The very one who right now looks up here into the front of the room and sees what appears to be an image up here by the name of Bill Samuel, whose awareness is it? Whose consciousness is it that's doing the looking? It's the consciousness that says, I am. Your own. That's consciousness, isn't it? Okay, now where have you ever seen any sight except within that consciousness? In anybody else's? In the one called mothers? In the one called teachers? In the one called ministers? In the one called philosophers? No. One awareness, your own. The only sights you've ever seen have been your own sights. No matter what sights they were. You've seen them in one place, within your own thinking.
You make
Now,
it sound so lonely.
now hang on, dear, just a minute. Okay, does that make us sound lonely?
Yeah.
Well, the Lord thy God is one God, the statement is. Let me point out that there really is just one awareness, and that's all you're concerned with. Where have you ever heard any sound except within this one awareness? And where have you ever felt any feelings or thought any thoughts except within one awareness, the one you call yourself? And yet you say this would make you lonely?
Yeah.
Dear lady, it doesn't, because just think, heretofore you've been looking in a mirror and you've been seeing a very pretty body form there that is named Cindy, and you say this is identity. Well, imagine what a great awakening it is to recognize an identity that is infinite, that includes all people within itself.
Yes, but can all people be included? I mean, they can count. There are people that, although they don't see the same thing, that they're going to be with you. I mean, you've got me thinking that, tell me that there's all these people are involved. Do you understand what I'm saying?
You want me to tell you that all people are involved?
With the same thing, yeah.
Have you ever heard the statement well, you've heard the statement to love God with all thy heart, soul, might, and so forth, and then to love mankind as yourself? Have you ever heard that? To love everyone as yourself? Well, when you awaken to this new identity, to a greater identity, an all-inclusive identity that is infinite and beautiful and pure and perfect, that includes everybody and everything, all of a sudden you can love yourself and everybody and everything because you're looking out at an aspect of yourself. And all of a sudden you can see why to call somebody something ugly or to hurt somebody. All of a sudden you can see why to do such a thing would only be to be calling yourself something ugly or hurting yourself. So now, the question was originally, can I identify with anybody Western? Yes, indeed I can. All of them. All the Western philosophies are included within myself, but so are all of the Eastern and Mid-Eastern and Northern and Southern and all of them. All are included within this awareness I am, and I have tried very hard to write from such a position and to make it clear and simple. Now, admittedly, we come up in one sort of a culture, and we've got our own hang-ups in it, and we've got our own prejudices and opinions within it, and we have our own jargon, our own terminology within it. I have tried very hard to come up with a new terminology and a new jargon and to say it in ways that it hasn't been said before so that we could see how silly it is to condemn or criticize or exclude somebody else's ideas and concepts. Question.
You think parents oppress a child searching for certain
that parents oppress children searching? Well, it would appear that I can see everything from parents that oppress their children, and most ridiculously, to those who are ultra helpful. So I see the gamut. I can look out in the universe, and the objective universe, that is what I see as people, places, and things. I can look out there and see everything. So yes, I see some parents who appear to oppress, and I see some that appear to help. But I think the intentions of parents are always good, because parents are very, very prone, to love their own kids.
Do you think that parents and children tell each other exactly how they feel about each other?
Absolutely. I think that, listen, here's one of the remarkable things. When you awaken to this identity as awareness itself, where, after all, the only place you've ever seen the one called mother and father is within this single awareness you are. All of a sudden you recognize that whoever you talk to, you're talking to yourself, and why can't you talk to yourself as yourself? So then you do. Sure, you can talk to them with absolute equality. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to hear the reply coming back to you as though they thought this, but here again, the statement is, let's get the beam out of this eye first, and let's live ourselves here perfectly first, and we do it ourselves as we see fit first. We get honest first before we worry about the dishonesty of others. We get straight here first before we worry about the so-called crookedness of our others out there. Have I answered your question?
Yes. When you find out that parents deliberately hide something from you, and you find out the truth about that certain matter yourself, should you go and talk to them about it and tell them that you found out, and you ask them why they kept it from you?
Well, dear, one thing I've got to say is that with my philosophy, it's not my philosophy, it's just philosophy. I can say that I didn't for myself. I couldn't used to get along very well. And I fought the battle with parents, but I found out later that love was infinitely more important than their actions. That there is always something behind the action that we see. There's always something behind the word that we hear, and it's always love. Love really is the motive power of this universe, and love is behind everything that's taken place, really. And so I have seemed to go above what I saw with the eyes, or behind what I saw with the eyes, to a greater reality. Now, I don't know if I've answered your question very well. All I can do is speak for myself. I didn't always get along, but now I do. Now I do, because I've learned so much more. I've learned that the one that I call mother is not outside this concept of this very awareness that is aware right here, right now.
Is there love behind war?
Yes, there's love even behind war. Yeah, love is the motive power of the universe.
How?
There, the whole volumes have been written about that, and it's quite a complex and complicated philosophy, and I can't answer it real quickly without keeping you here for a very long time. But yes, love is behind everything that everybody does. Really, love for something. For example, a businessman who's out making a lot of bucks, he says that, well, he's doing it for security because he wants to raise a family. Why? Because he feels that security will make him feel better. Love is a matter of feeling, isn't it? Okay, he feels that if his family is secure, that he won't have to worry so much, and that's feeling. Love and feeling are pretty much synonymous terms. Of course, love, there is a love that's above and beyond just feeling. We've been told that God, to use that word. Down here in the South, we don't mind using that word so much. Other parts of the country, some places, they don't even want you to use the word God. And there we use other terms like reality, or truth, or isness, or light. But love is where it's at. Love is the motive power of the universe. Now just stop and think just a minute. What brought you here tonight? Well, you said, oh, there's going to be a meeting, somebody's going to come and talk, and maybe I can learn something. Why? Because you felt that you would add to a store of knowledge, perhaps? And again, why? Because you thought that this was something that would be fulfilling or self-completing? What is that but love? Love. Even if it's love for an ego, and bear in mind that that's where we all start, loving this ego. Feeding and fattening a big intellect, trying to get that intellect ahead of everything and everybody else. That's where we all start, only to find out after a while that there is more to life than just the intellect. There's the heart too. So yes, love is, I stand on this for myself. Love is all, I see love as the motive power behind every action that I've ever seen. And I, of course, philosophically can go down the logic and reason philosophic proofs, but that would be a lot of intellectual mumbo-jumbo, and here I'm talking to the heart. I'm talking to the heart. I am. I see you as the self I am, and I'm talking to myself. One time I had a lecturer, a world-famous lecturer, tell me, he says, something's come over me. All of a sudden I've gotten to where I can't talk anymore. I get up and I'm frightened. Now this is a lecturer. He makes his living lecturing. And okay, now what am I looking at? I'm looking out only at an aspect of myself that I call a lecturer, right? Where do I see anyone? Where do you see right now what you call a room full of people except within yourself? So I talked to this man as myself, and I said, well, okay, why don't you, the next time you stand up in front of a room full of people, look out there and see that whole room is just all included within the very consciousness you are. Don't think of yourself as a man standing behind a podium, but see yourself as awareness, as consciousness, as the divine consciousness that life is. And then, with that recognition, you'll know that you're talking to yourself. And you certainly don't have to be frightened about talking to yourself. So you know what he did? He printed up a little gizmo that he put up on the podium with him that said, tonight, I don't remember exactly how it went, but in effect it said, tonight I'm going to give a lecture on thus and so, and I know my subject very well. And I will be talking to myself, and will appreciate what I have to say, and might even applaud myself when it's all over. And he had a little bit of profanity that I didn't repeat on there too. But in any event, this man is now lecturing around the world. Still. So this is what philosophy finally brings us to see. Yes, ma'am.
You refer to Christianity a lot in your lecture. Are you a Christian?
Dear, I thought, yes, I refer to Christianity a lot because I have studied it and have lived it to the best of my ability. And I include Christianity within this philosophy that I am. But so do I also include within this philosophy I am Judaism and Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism and every other kind of a concept that can be thought of, because the only place I've ever thought of it is within myself. So yes, we have to communicate, we use words, and so I use door-opening words. I use words that people are familiar with. If I happen to be in Germany, if I expected to be understood, I would speak German if I could, or else have an interpreter. And if I'm talking to good Southern Baptists, I would use that terminology because it would be understood. And if I'm talking to a group of New England metaphysicians from Boston, I would use that terminology because it would appear to be understood. So yes, I do use Christian terms. But tonight, whether you know it or not, I've used a lot of terms that come from all kinds of philosophies and beliefs. Have I answered your question? Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Another thing I heard you say several times is like, you're saying like believe with your heart or feel with your heart. Do you actually believe that the feelings and that your beliefs all come from the heart itself or the mind? Do you believe that the heart, I guess this is getting into, so this is a question.
Good question.
No,
Good question.
It's a question that's come in my family. My father cannot just understand how you believe with your heart or feel with your heart. That it's your heart, like the guy that got the heart transplant, is that going to change his feelings and all sorts of things?
Thank you, dear. That's a good question. Anyway, the point you're making is a good philosophic point that has been long argued by philosophers It brings up an awful lot of very interesting things, but there is in philosophy a problem that has yet to be resolved, at least within philosophic circles. It's the problem called dualism. I don't know how much you know. You haven't read any of my stuff, so therefore pretty hard to get so involved. But basically, to answer your question there, it seems that we have an intellect and a heart. For myself, and that's all I can speak of with any authority, I've struck a balance between the two. First, I was purely the intellectual, and I noticed that my pride and arrogance grew in proportion to my intellect. Pretty soon I thought I was pretty cotton-picking smart, and I vaunted myself up, only to be brought very low. I ignored the heart because I said the heart isn't very scientific, and there's no way to measure it. Well, stop and ask yourself, is there any way to measure infinity? Is there any way that one can measure reality or God? If you can measure infinity, it isn't infinite. Okay, so it finally resolved itself that one day I awakened to discover the heart. I awakened to a feeling within myself of great joy, great light, an experience that has been referred to philosophically as illumination. It's been spoken of as the Holy Ghost. It's been spoken of depending on what your upbringing has been or what philosophy you're acquainted with. But there is a grand experience, and it happens to everybody, and it's already happened to all of you at one time or another, when all of a sudden you felt some great joy within yourself. A real cleansing, beautiful fullness within yourself that let you see the world differently, that let you see your friends differently, that allowed fear and anguish and trepidation and all of those things to kind of just pour out, off and out of your fingers. Okay, this is the discovery of the heart. Now, when we first find the heart, we're prone to want to take the intellect and just heave it right out the window and say, well, gee, all these years I've been being led around by the nose by an intellect. And I would take that filthy thing and throw it out, and I'll become again as a child. You know, we've heard it said, lest ye become as children. It's a good teaching, too, I tell you. But at first, when we first discover the heart, we want to take the intellect and destroy it. Well, okay, this doesn't work either, because the heart is pretty overwhelming at times. Love, we've heard the statement that love is blind, haven't we? You've heard it. Well, I have, for myself at least, found that there's a real happy balance between the heart and the intellect. It's a center. It's called the narrow way. Buddha called it the center way. The one called the Christ spoke of it as the narrow way. In Judaism, it was spoken of as the secret place, or the Shekinah, or the Holy of Holies, the center. You remember even in the book of Genesis, it speaks of the Garden of Eden, perfection. It says a tree in the midst of the garden, in the center. Well, I found a center between the heart and the intellect. And I run with it. I run with it. No matter what the world says. No matter what propriety says. No matter what society says. To the best of my ability, I run with it. I take my licks, but I run with it. And I found that inevitably it's right. It tells it to me like it is. Not necessarily like all of the institutions and books and so forth say it is, but it tells it to me like it is. And I then am my own teacher, because the minute I do something wrong, who's first to know it? Me, myself, and I. And all of a sudden I have this little voice behind me saying, this is the way, walk ye in it, when you turn to the right hand and when you turn to the left. If I do anything excessively, I know it, because I've lost my balance. Okay, have I answered your question? There's a balance between the heart and the intellect. The heart is very nebulous. It's very hard to put your finger on, can't be defined. It's like thoughts. How can you define, how can I put it into words? Right now, how can I put the national anthem into words? so that you can hear the national anthem and feel all the goose pimples and everything that go along with it. How can I do that? Words just can't do it. Take one of your favorite pieces of music right now. You tell me how I can take words. And just by using words. Now, I've got no guitars now, no drums, and I've got no musical group to help me do this. I've got nothing but words. You tell me how words can communicate all the sound, the melody, the drums, the feeling that goes along with it. Can't be done, can it? Consequently, the answer is words just aren't where it's at either. Words are not. Well, the words are like fingers. They just point in the direction. And that's why I say the words lead us to the heart. We read the words, and all of a sudden the heart within responds. And we find this great joy, this great love, and then we know. Then we know. Yes, the words are symbols. You know, like tree is a thing, but the word is a symbol. Just tree. You hear the word tree. It brings to mind tree, but it may bring to mind an oak tree or a pine tree or some other kind of tree, but the word tree is a symbol of a thing.
Created by who?
Beg pardon?
Created by who?
Words are made by people. That's right, words. The words that we're using right here, right now, are man-made. Consequently, there's nothing eternal or infinite about them. But now, of course, there is, as good old John told us in the Bible, if we want to stick to a particular flower in the garden called Christianity, it says, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word itself was God. All right, but now that's not the word I'm talking about right now. Here we're getting off into religion. Now we're sticking here to philosophy, and words are man-made. And they're like toothpicks. Each word is measurable, and it's a toothpick, and it brings to mind all kinds of things. And a word one day won't bring to mind what it'll bring the next day. See, and as one grows and as one recognizes who and what he is, as one's awareness expands and develops and grows apace, that same word means a great deal more next day. That's why when a minister or a preacher or somebody says, this is the meaning of this verse, you're listening usually to a good bit of gas and hot air, because it is only a meaning to that verse. Because a verse or something that is genuine or that relates to the truth itself must mean something to you on whatever ground you stand on. If you're sad, it means something to you then. Take those beautiful words, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Take that. All right. If you're broke and you need money real bad, if it's dollars you're considering, that verse means something to you then, doesn't it? But suppose you're lonely. Suppose it's a matter of loneliness and you are dying for companionship, it seems. And you hear those words, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It means something from that position too, doesn't it? Suppose you happen to be very angry and you want to poleaxe somebody in anger for some nutty reason, because you don't recognize that one out there you're mad at is only an aspect of yourself. And to hurt him would be only to hurt yourself. You haven't awakened to that yet. Well, okay, to hear that verse, the Lord is my shepherd, becomes along as something that soothes and does away with anger. So you see, verses, spiritual verses, religious verses, philosophic verses, anything that relates to the truth, pertains to the truth, means something to every position you stand on. And anybody that says, this is the meaning, okay, it's just somebody saying this is the meaning. You can say to yourself, there are other meanings too. But the meaning that I feel, here is I, is the one that counts, because that's the one I act on, right? When I say I mean you. I mean you. Please understand. Okay? Have I answered your question? With too many words. I use too many words, didn't I? Seems that we use words to communicate, but do you know now we're learning how to communicate other ways. How many of you men have ever stood behind your girlfriend when she was mad? Now, she didn't have to say a word, did she? She communicated. Anger communicates. Depths of feeling communicate. There are ways to communicate besides words. Words are just the beginning of communication. Just a way to communicate. Listening. I tell you, looking out at the teacher out there and think that that's the only way to acquire wisdom. That's one of the first things you're going to learn is just not so. Sure, you listen to the one out there, but when you recognize that the one out there is only an aspect of yourself, come to tell yourself something, and that the real confirmation is within yourself, you're going to find yourself learning twice as fast and twice as much. All of a sudden it'll be like they said about Jesus. They said, gee whiz, he never had an education. How is it he knows so much? When he was 12 years old, he was talking with the rabbis, wasn't he? You'll find yourself that there are a lot better ways of being educated than the way we're going about it right now. And the educational institutions are having its shortcomings called to its attention, and by whom? By young people. By its very product. And don't you think that there won't be renovations and corrections and changes? You folks are the leaders. Already. Not will be. You are. Already. See, why? Because this life you are is it. The very awareness that right now, here's one up here called Bill yakking away. It looks around and sees friends and may feel floor underneath your rear end or a chair or something else against your back. That awareness is it. It's the only awareness you'll ever be concerned with. So you may as well get acquainted with it. Understand what it is and why it is and all about it. This is to know thyself. To know thyself. You know, that was on the Great Pyramid of Egypt, to know thyself. Jesus made the remark, know thyself. Jesus made the remark, he said, know what's before your eyes, and what's hidden will be revealed. Okay, know then who and what this awareness is. The very awareness that right here, right now, hears these sounds is it, folks. How close to it can you get? Wherever you go, you're just being awareness. You can make your bed in hell, but awareness will be right there. You can flee to the hithermost parts of the universe, but awareness, it'll just be awareness there. So it's already who and what you are. Reality is your very identity, right now, already. And there's no great struggling climb to arrive at what your identity is. There is only to understand what it is. And look for it. And knock. And ask. And I repeat, and we'll conclude, that all you got to do is take one step towards self-discovery. To look deep within yourself to find the life you are, the love you are, the heart you are. And I guarantee you that that self you are will come charging forth to reveal and disclose itself to you. At least so it's been for me. And I can only speak about this experience called I, identity, even as you can only speak for the experience that you call I, identity. Folks, I know now that we've gone deep, and this has been kind of, but it's really so simple. This is what I want to conclude. I want to tell you this. I got to tell you this, that reality is so simple. The thing that hides it is its simplicity, not its depth. All these years we thought we've had to struggle and strive and strain to arrive at love and arrive at wisdom, and I tell you it's closer than breathing, closer than fingers and toes. It's its simplicity. It's simple. It's simple. It's what love is. It's what life is. It's what living is. And you're already it. There's no great struggle to arrive at identity. There's only to admit that there is just one identity to be, the divine identity you are. And then live it to the best of your ability. Begin living out from such a position. And all things really will become new in your affairs. Okay, that's it. I thank all of you for your great attention, and now anybody that wants to ask me anything, I'll hang around for a few minutes. And I do thank you for this opportunity to talk to you very much, and I think it's a wonderful thing you're doing. You're about the business of self-discovery. Thank you.